I hate A Feast for Odin. Or at least that's what I thought after about 4 to 5 plays. I picked up A Feast for Odin hoping it would be one of my favorite games of all time. I really had thought that it would be. I knew I wanted to bring a modern perspective to A Feast for Odin, and I was sure that there were some dated aspects to the game, being like 8 years old at this point. But the reviews speak for themselves. 8.2 on BGG with 4,810 star reviews. Moreover, I love worker placement. I love polyomino. Vikings are awesome. So what could go wrong? Well, apparently a lot. To start, there's a staggering 61 action spots. Yeah, 61. That is insane. It was clear to me, especially early on in my plays, that Uwe had quite the editing problem. It just seemed sloppy and underdeveloped. I mean, if you design 61 different action spots, how good can your game be? It certainly can't be tight. It certainly can't be a elegant, simple masterpiece that has great depth, yet low rule overhead. On top of that, with this wasteland of action that you can possibly choose, it's not particularly apparent early on as to what to choose and why you're choosing it. I mean, it's clearly communicated that the way to win this game is pretty simply cover your home board full of those polyomino pieces and get rid of all of those negative points. But outside of that, it's kind of an open world Euro worker placement game. The world's your oyster, in fact, and you can do one of a number of things. On top of the idea of covering your home board with pieces, it certainly implied that balancing your approach between acquiring green and blue pieces is important because of the placement rules, as blue can be next to blue, but green can't be adjacent to green. So the game is also communicating that you really want to balance getting those things. But how do you go about getting those pieces to put them on your board? One of the early ways that I tried to figure out and exploit are the dice roll mechanic that's connected to a number of different activities or actions. In fact, it's connected to snaring, hunting, whaling, raiding, pillaging, and plundering. Yes, those are all totally different action spaces. And the latter three are passed on high dice rolls and the former are passed on low dice rolls, both of which are augmented by resources and weapon cards. However, if you want to whale, raid, or pillage, you need different types of ships to do so, which is yet another 4 different actions. In order to build these ships, you need wood. And in order to acquire wood, you have to go to one of 6 mountain spaces to collect it. The point here is you need specific stuff, and to get the specific stuff, there's an order of operations that you have to go through to acquire it. And on top of that, it's not super clear because there's different versions of all of these actions that you're left as a new player trying to do the mental math on which version you need. And why that matters is you get a certain number of Vikings. Throughout the game, it's ever increasing, and each column of actions takes a different number of Vikings, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So you're left with trying to figure out how to get these blue and green polyomino pieces, and in the instance that I just described, going through an order of operations of 3 or 4 things. On top of that, you're trying to pick which strength and version of action you need to use to accomplish what you want, and you really have no idea about what the worker or the Viking economy is, so you don't really know the difference between spending 1 and 4 Vikings. If you're spending 3 or 4, you're acquiring these occupation cards or playing these occupation cards to kind of make you more powerful, which you don't really know what any of these occupations actually mean. And lastly, I started to notice these extra island boards and house boards that you're supposed to acquire and fill up as well. Meanwhile, halfway through the game, you're staring at your home board that is mostly open, wondering how the hell am I going to fill that thing out, let alone another island? Why on earth would I ever take another island? And it's at this point where I realize I'm really having no fun. In fact, in about round 5 of a 7-round game, I'm really wanting it to end every single time. And honestly, I'm totally miffed. I couldn't understand a game that I was really sure I was going to like because it's basically most content creators' favorite game. I mean, that might be an exaggeration, but it's not that far from the truth. People love this thing. And I'm just sitting here after 5, 6 plays, whatever it is, just wondering, like, how am I going to go and film a video that is incredibly negative about this beloved game. So at that point, I have a decision. I put out kind of a hot take on it, and granted, it's probably going to get plenty of clicks because there's so many people that love this game. They're going to wonder, why on earth does somebody actually hate this thing? Or I don't cover it all and just kind of cut my losses and move on to the next thing. Or I double down and try to figure out, like, what am I missing? Am I missing some sort of rules? Like, is there massive strategy that's just totally over my head? Just nothing is actually clicking for me. So I dive deep into the BGG forums, and there are years and years and giant forums on strategy to this game, and I find plenty of strategy that has nothing to do with what I'm actually trying to do. And really, it's pretty simple. I start trying to get to income very early in the game, if not in the first round. And I then buy island boards that I previously had thought there's no way I could possibly be filling up. But there is a compound effect because, these boards offer extra bonuses or income each and every round. So there is a bit of a progression to the game, and that's something that early on I was completely missing. The idea of going and getting something that I totally thought there was zero chance that I could ever fill out was actually the thing that opened the game up for me. Had I done what I think happens each and every day, especially from like a Kickstarter perspective, I would have just kind of played it 3-4 times, given a quick assessment on this game and why it's just not for me, and moved on to the next video. And I think what this coverage of A Feast for Odin has turned into is more of a conviction and kind of an eye-opening moment on what content creation around board games incentivizes. It incentivizes you to put out as many videos as possible and have as many touch points with your audience as possible. And it wants you to engage with your audience often. On top of that, it's really looking for new and hot and the things that people are already searching for. And that's much more likely to actually hit the algorithm and gain some legs and actually get people watching your stuff. So there's incentive for creators to seek out newness, hotness, put it out as quickly as possible, because once again, you're competing with each other to get coverage out. And I think it incentivizes us to not dive deep into games. And that's something that I've been wrestling with recently. In fact, was why I did an insane deep dive on The Lost Ruins of Arnak, one of my favorite games of all time. Even though it's certainly not the hotness and people aren't really searching for it, I felt like there's certain games that just really deserve a lot of care, consideration, and frankly, plays. And that takes a lot of time. A game like A Feast for Odin, you really should be playing 10, 15, 20 times before you even get in front of a camera to talk to somebody about it. And I wonder how many other games are out there that I've just kind of glossed over in the name of getting coverage out that maybe I didn't give a full chance. On the flip side, how many games are out there that I really, really liked, but it was only after 3 or 4 plays? What happens if I were to give that game plenty of room to breathe? And I just think that the system is not set up for that. It's not set up for content creators, especially small content creators trying to kind of get your name out and get videos seen. It's just tough to sit back and take a month with a game and really get into the depth of strategy. And certainly not every game has 61 different actions to explore, but the concept kind of holds true, especially with complex board games, is what are we doing to ourselves? Why are we setting up a system that incentivizes somebody to play a game a couple times and go and review it and then taking their advice and going and buying the thing? I mean, I look over at my shelves and it's riddled with games that I knee-jerk bought or backed because a content creator that I really enjoyed and trust, and in fact still trust them, but they gave a glowing take on what this game is and how excited they were on it. But in reality, it just faded away for me. And in fact, on one of those, I saw And there's a game that's out of screen right now that I'm not going to talk about. I don't want to point to the specific creator, but they're getting rid of the game that they essentially sold me and I spent hundreds of dollars on. That's good, but I haven't even cracked the box since the first month of owning it. I guess at the end of the day, A Feast for Odin has helped me to understand that I'm probably not spending enough time with games. I'm definitely not giving each and every one the chance to breathe and for me to kind of better understand its mechanisms and why I might like it or not like it. This was a great lesson because now that I've had 10 or 15, it was probably closer to 15 games in A Feast for Odin, I love it. Now that I understand the path that you need to take to accomplish the different goals on your board and understand the different occupation cards and the strengths of the islands and all of the little nuance, I love the game. And I would feel awful if I would have figured that out later on, but put out a video saying I hate it. Literally after 4 or 5 plays, I was thinking this thing is not fun at all. But now, you know, I put in a significant amount of time just playing it, a significant amount of time just researching how to play it, and its brilliance is now no longer lost on me because I put in a little extra effort. I wish I could say that for every single game that I play. It's just not the case. And the pedigree that A Feast for Odin has is the only reason why I figured this out. So I'm gonna take away that at the end of the day, I think I need to spend more time with board games before I go talk about them. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for being here. Have a good day.